Hey guys, so today I'm going to show you how I go about producing something that sounds like it could be a Korn track, and of course I will give you all the producing and writing tips I can along the way. I've done one of these before, but I feel like I want to kind of do an updated one and kind of try and blend all Korn sounds, everything I love about all the Korn eras, into one huge sound. So as you can see, I've got a bunch of my presets loaded up here in Cubase, and one by one we'll go through these and build this song, and I'll try and break down the sounds for you so you understand how I'm getting everything to sound the way it does. And we're just going to start by setting the tone with some creepy guitar effects. So I'm at 98 beats per minute. You want something slow and bouncy usually for this kind of genre. And as far as what notes I'm playing, I'm not going to do anything too crazy right now. Let's just let the open A ring out and just add a flat fifth. So all that we're doing there is just establishing a key straight away with that low A, and then, you know, the flat fifth just immediately tells the listener, okay, this is kind of, you know, a creepy vibe, makes the listener feel uncomfortable, makes them feel that something's come in, and obviously it is, because we're going to drop this into a heavy riff. And these are two very similar guitar sounds. So a tube screamer, we have this TS7 just boosting the signal, and then that's going into this thing called amp locker, which this is a free plugin, and I don't even know what this amp is based on, but to me it just kind of has that early Korn sound. I don't use this plugin very much because it sounds like a free plugin, but for this Korn stuff there's just a high-end bite that it has that I find really reminds me of the first few Korn albums. So, you know, without effects, that's just a very 90s kind of crunchy metal tone. Oh, and I'm of course in drop A tuning. Or maybe Korn uses A standard, but anyway, you need that low A. So then we've got that amp, and then it's ringing into a vibrato, which is the main thing giving it that, you know, instead of it going do, it's like do thing. And then we've just got some delay and some more vibrato. So yeah, the delay is just for a bit more atmosphere. And I don't want to do the obvious thing here and like rip off blind, but kind of makes sense to have just some kind of texture from a ride cymbal. Add some kicks. Right now I just want to do everything I can to make it feel ominous, but super soft, so that when it hits, it really, really hits. So the drums, that's all we really need, just some very light texture, and this is the Get Good Drums metal kit. I'm tired of saying this, I use this in every video, but it just does everything I want. Yeah, we've got some decapitator on it and just a little EQ. So the second time round on these drums, let's kind of add some hi-hat chokes and some toms. Again, just keeping it really soft, but just building a bit more tension, a bit of that kind of tribal Korn feel that you sometimes get in their songs. And just, you know, just keeping it interesting so that this intro doesn't drag on too long. All right, so then we have these two whammy guitar tracks, which if I show you the automation, I've already pushed the whammy. So if you listen to this, and these two are both the same thing, but this one's just quieter, and we're of course going to use the quiet one in the intro. And we're just going to go for a minor second, and then a flat fifth up from that, just to add a shit ton of dissonance. Any kind of dissonant chord like that with whammy is just the most Korn thing ever. So that's almost it for the intro. That definitely establishes the creepy kind of, oh shit, something's about to drop kind of vibe. Oh, and this track is basically just the same thing as up here. We've got like the delay, the vibrato, the same amp and everything. It's just got this whammy in front of it called Whammo, which I'm pretty sure is modeled on a Digitech. So the only thing left that we need in this intro, I think, is a little bit of metal guitar. So I have three different tones here, all on the left and right. So we have, again, the same thing as above, but without the delay. So the same amp, and just a very, not amazing metal tone, but you know, it's kind of just a crunchy tone. It's not too distorted, but it really sounds to me like the first two Korn albums with a little less distortion. And that is because we have two other guitar sounds. So this is like my go-to metal sound with some highs taken out. That's kind of a more basic metal tone and not like instantly recognizable as Korn, but it adds a lot of modernness to that other tone when they're blended together. And just all that distortion and low end, it just fills it out. But then the other one, which I made a video on, is the classic pitch shifted fuzzy Korn tone, which I love, and I've never made a Korn type beat without just using that track. So the reason we have all these different guitar sounds going on as just one main guitar sound is because, like I said, I'm trying to just capture everything. So I want this to sound as much like the first Korn album as it does like the last, and everything in between. That's the guitar sounds. Now let's just quickly tease a classic bouncy Korn riff. hopefully with all these sounds, you guys are starting to pick up on like, you know, the crazy fuzzy sound, the crazy whammy sounds, these crazy vibrato-y sounds. All these things sound like Korn, and to me, Korn, I think I said this in the last video, but they are so inventive, and I feel like they don't get anywhere near enough credit. To me, they're up there with a band like Pink Floyd with what they have done with innovation and just approaching sound in a way that's so avant-garde, so experimental, but they're pretty mainstream and pretty like, you know, people just nod their head to it because it's good music. They're not like trying to show off and be like, look how experimental we are. But if you really analyze what they're doing, there is no one who sounds like Korn. There's no one who approaches music the way these guys do, and that's one of the reasons why I just don't stop making videos about Korn's sounds, because to me, the stuff they were doing like 20 years ago, I'm just starting to hear, like, you know, even like Architects, Bring Me the Horizon, all the stuff that's biggest right now. Like, I hear a lot of Korn in all their guitar sounds and the way that they're approaching things. I don't know if any of those bands would say Korn is an influence, but Korn did it all first. Like, where do you hear any of these sounds that I'm using other than in a Korn track? And it's just so abstract. It's not like, oh, they just use this effect. It's like this one and then this one and then this one and then this one, this type of distortion and this type of amp and crazy stuff. And we haven't even got to the Fieldy bass yet, but in a second we will. So now we need to finally drop it. We built all this tension, we need to drop it, bring in like a bouncy Korn riff, so let's get to that. So in the drop, I'm going to use the Get Good Drums kit again, but as you can see, I've separated out the kick, snare, toms, and overhead so that I can just process them differently, slightly different EQ, just so I can get everything really sitting where it wants to be. But this is all Get Good Drums, and let's just put that on all the tracks. So I'm just going for a very simple, syncopated, but kind of on the beat metal groove. Kick sounds like way too much, but in the mix with all the guitars and bass and everything, it needs to stick out. So there's a lot of high end, like, just to make sure it really slaps when everything else is kind of crowding up the mix. All right, so we're going to take this guitar riff from here and put it on the left and right and just give it a real Korn feel. And we'll put it on the left and right of these 3 different tones. I know it doesn't sound that great with that tone on its own, but trust me, all that tone is doing, there's no low end in it, it's just giving us a bit of that, like, just that 90s kind of early Korn grit. So now we'll do the other 2 tones. So here's the standard kind of metal one. And if that doesn't sound huge enough already. And if that doesn't sound huge enough already, we got the bass in a second. But I just want to talk about this riff. So it may seem like I'm kind of just writing a mindless, you know, 3, 2, 1 open kind of Korn riff, because I feel like people kind of think that's how they write, just wah, 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 wah. The reason I'm choosing the notes that I'm choosing is because I'm kind of establishing a natural minor, so I'm using a minor third, second. That's all completely in key. This is what Korn loves to do. They establish a key and then, you know, just completely throw everything out the window so that to the listener it just sounds like, whoa, that is nasty. Like, they just add notes that are not in key but kind of sound right because it's where you're going. It's like I'm going down the fretboard here and just repeating the same pattern so it sounds right. But you can tell, even if you know nothing about music theory, you can tell like, oh, that sounds kind of wrong, because it is. And that's a classic Korn trick. Just kind of set the listener up and then violate their expectations with some wrong notes and just some atonal chromatic dissonance. We've got the whammy coming in again there. Some more atonal chords and throwing the whammy on it just to keep it interesting, keep it bouncing, and keep it a bit less repetitive. So that's the guitars laid down. You know what it's time for now. So I also did a video on this tone. This is the main one. You can hear this is a super quiet, very quiet layer. The main tone is this one, which I've called Angry because, like I said, I did a video on this, but if you want to get the kind of quick breakdown, higher gauge strings than you would usually use so that they're like flapping around and super clanky. A tuning, obviously. Slap super hard. Scoop almost all the mids. I leave a little bit of high mid in just for distorted like jankiness, but scoop a lot of the mids, boost a lot of the bass, boost a lot of the treble, and just distort it a little bit. And that is essentially the Fieldy sound. This layer is just a little more distorted and kind of got that high mid grit that I'm talking about. Yeah, another trick is turning it pretty loud in the mix. You want to hear that clicky sound. I just want to jump in, guys, and say if you're enjoying this video, hit the like, hit the subscribe with notifications on so that you don't miss the next one of these that I do. As always, this track will be for sale in my BeatStars in the description along with everything else I've made. And if any of you want a custom track or want to work together or whatever, hit me up on my Instagram or my email, which will also be below. That being said, let's get back into it. All right, so now we have an intro and like a main riff. So let's go for a verse. And I'm going to go back to the chill drums, as I've called it, because, you know, for the hard stuff to hit hard, we've got to make the quiet stuff nice and quiet. So let's do some more hi-hat chokes and then just kind of a straight hi-hat groove. And quickly, I'm just going to add a couple more things to just emphasize the drop itself. So we've got Get Good Drums Kick again, just with slightly more distortion, and you can hear a lot of high mids in that. Just adds a little more punch right on the one beat. And then the last touch for this part, I'm just going to import these samples that I found in a Ghost Tech sample pack, just a kick and a cymbal. Neither of those are a metal sound, but they just add a little more, kind of in the background, just add a little more release from that cymbal. Just feels like an exhale as it drops. So what I'm doing here is, again, pretty simple, but just with a little bit of groove sprinkled in. Both Korn drummers, but David especially, is so good at this, where it's like for like verse sections or quieter sections, he'll establish like a really simple hip hop beat, but just add, you know, the little hi-hat chokes and tom hits and just syncopated little moments that'll just make it really feel like it grooves and it's like already building the tension for when it explodes again. And let's just essentially bring the intro back. Since the mix is more thin and we've not got the loud guitars, loud drums, let's let the bass shine a little more, because that is what Korn tends to do in their verses. So we'll actually play some notes rather than just noise. We'll go still super low, but let's kind of start a little higher and then just get nastier. So that, again, that locks in with the drums and with that kind of hip-hop groove and just really makes it feel like this is a hip-hop beat from the 90s, but it's still unmistakably Korn. We do want to thin out the mix in the verse, but let's just add a bit more guitar because we have space for a bit more texture here. So we got the whammy coming in there, but it's super quiet. Just, again, subtle little effects that give you that vibe. There's like something's not right. Korn is just the best at creating like anxiety in their music. So at the end of this, let's go straight back into that heavy riff. I'm just going to copy this straight over. We'll kind of have that as like a pre-chorus, super heavy, like angry part, get all the rage out, and then we'll go into a more melodic chorus, which is a whole other thing with Korn, really, because they do have melodic parts, but they're such a like anti-melodic band that they do it in a kind of specific way. So let's get into that now. So first thing for the chorus is we want it to hit hard, so that's not going to feel repetitive having the same thing because you don't even notice it anyway. You just feel it. So we want it to still feel super heavy. And drum wise, let's do the same kind of thing, but just basically like move the kicks around. But bam, bam. So again, simple but effective is what we're going for here. Korn's choruses tend to be literally like 4 chords, 4 power chords, and just make sure that it's not taken away from the vibe. It has to stay dissonant. So we're going to go with these 4 chords. So there's 4 very basic chords, just power chords, nothing else. But it's got the dissonance in there. The minor second is one of the most dissonant intervals there is. The minor 6th is one of the most dissonant. And the minor 3rd just kind of ties it all together and keeps it in the same vibe. And just having, instead of it going, it keeps the groove, keeps it Korn if you've 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and... So very simple, very subtle, but the simple stuff is where you can kind of fuck it all up if you don't think about what simple notes you use and what simple chords. So what I'm going to do now, just to add another dimension to the chorus, is just duplicate that track. Let's add a bunch of reverb. Let's actually also put a chorus effect on it, and we'll duplicate that again and add a harmony, because as simple as I want this to be, it doesn't have to be insanely simple. We can add a bit of harmony. So first, let's just put some octaves down and go from there. So for this harmony, we're going to go super nasty. Go for like a major 3rd harmony, because that is something Korn actually does. It's a pretty harmony, but when you're using super dissonant chords, it just sounds weird. So all together, that will sound like this. CPU is dying from all these effects, but you get the idea. So now we can basically copy the verse and chorus over again. So now all we need is a bridge and then we're done. And of course, this is Korn. So there's only one way this is going to go. We're going to bring in a new riff. It's going to be heavier. And we're going to do the whole ride thing again, just like we did in the intro. It's all about dynamics. We're dropping it super quiet so that we can explode again. So what we're going to do in this bridge, we've been kind of chilling down here. We're going to break some new metal rules and we're going to come all the way up. Can you believe that? We're going to use this. This is like the 13th fret. It's a good time to change it up. It's a good time to introduce some kind of different vibes. Build it, build it, build it. And then of course we're going to drop it down in the same kind of fashion we have been doing. All this stuff is just variations on different syncopation, different rhythm, and just something that has a ton of bounce to it. So this is going to seem lazy, but I'm going to take these drums over from the main riff and just put them here because it's going to feel so different. This is a totally different riff. I'm going to drop it down, so instead of it going, so in the build-up it's, when it drops it's going to go. So let's get all of these tracked on all the different sounds. Alright, so that is everything. Then we just bring in the chorus again. And now we have everything we need here for a super heavy, super quick Korn inspired track. So as always, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, hit me up in the description. Right, so here we go. This is everything I can think of that sounds like Korn, except bagpipes. No bagpipes. Comment if you play bagpipes. Let's make one together. I'm serious, let me know.